Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Frank Miller gets the credit for breaking Batman away from the campier, more humorous take of the character from the Silver Age and the Adam West series, but that honor actually belongs to others. We don't talk a lot about the Bronze Age of comics around here, content to focus on the earliest days, the goofier other early days, or the current modern stuff. But the Bronze Age of comics is responsible for a lot of what we consider to be the most iconic parts of characters. It lasted roughly around the death of Gwen Stacy over in Spider-Man to about Crisis on Infinite Earths at DC. Like any era, it had its exceptions, and it took a while to get a feel for what it really was, but once it was there, comics were basically all in. It was the first real attempt at making comics more serious, with more inclinations towards reflecting the real world by discussing real-world problems, racism, drugs, death, injury, etc. Part of that was thanks to the work of writer Dennis O'Neil and artist Neil Adams on Batman. In the early 70s, they were the ones focused on making Batman more of a dark, brooding hero again. They introduced many new staples into Batman, including Man-Bat and Ra's al Ghul. Neil Adams did a lot of work for DC through the 70s, but his projects moved into independent territory in the 80s as part of the indie boom around that time, forming his own company called Continuity Comics, which did have a comic that we looked at once, Zero Patrol. It's okay if you don't remember that episode. I barely remember it. We also have Neil Adams to thank for the artwork on Mr. T and the T-Force, of which we will always be eternally grateful. Unfortunately, today we are not looking at some of his classic work, oh no. In 2010, Neil Adams came back to DC for a Batman miniseries, which, like Frank Miller before him, was met with joy and reverie. And also like Frank Miller before him, the result was yeesh. Amusingly, according to an interview with Adams, it was apparently originally intended for Frank to write the story, but at the very least, Miller is partly responsible for this, having gotten Adams in touch with then DC editor Bob Schreck to get the ball rolling. As it happens, that was one of the few real details I was able to glean from that interview. Most of it was rambling nonsense that, if you're lucky, maybe answers one of the questions interviewer Matt Adler had for him. And that, of course, works out perfectly with the bizarreness that is this story. Other details I gleaned from that interview? He's supportive of One More Day because it saved Spider-Man from being destroyed as the character he was created to be. Okay, weird way of saying that, but hey, much as I dislike that story, people are allowed to like different things. But also that he was curious how Frank Miller's then next project will turn out. Some story originally intended to be Batman, and that it bodes to be great. Boy howdy Neil, did you back the wrong horse there. In any event, let's actually do some criticism of his work and not his interviews by digging into Batman Odyssey #1.
Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Life out, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he's a man punch, wears a pretty hat. Linkara, he has a magic gun. Where'd he purchase that? Linkara, coins, robots, Amazon and trucks. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
I'm reading from a trade, so no looking at the cover. That being said, I had 2 separate copies of Batman Odyssey sent to me by fans, the same book but different printings. And I kept the one that featured Batman riding on a pterodactyl. Because really, what else do you need to know about a book if it features Batman riding on a pterodactyl? We open in a way too close-up shot of Bruce Wayne talking to somebody. The reader? I don't know. Hey, ever want to see every single hair on Bruce Wayne's right arm? Well, Batman Odyssey is here to fulfill your strangely specific fetish.
Yes, that's the exit wound. The bullet entered near the inner wrist and slid between the ulna and radius. Missed the bones entirely. The secret to how I've survived as Batman is that my bones are actually incredibly thin and small. I'm more like some kind of rubber person. I bled like a stuck pig. Pigs from a gun! You could say it started that day, in a way. Or perhaps that day was symbolic of the whole thing.
Perhaps the start of the thing was symbolic of the thing. What?
I was very young, a few years older than Dick is now.
Bruce Wayne, age 12.
I had made my decision firmly, years before, when the tragedy, happened.
Ah, yes. When Alfred accidentally broke your gray ghost action figure.
My methodology occurred to me when the bat flew in the window. I would randomly leap through people's windows and inspire them by sitting in their living rooms. But it still seems silly. A bat. I mean, even today, I wonder if it wouldn't have been better if I had become Possum Man. Anyway, I originally told myself that I'd made the costume for the Beaux Arts. It was a lie, and deep inside I knew it.
My favorite Batman comics are the ones where he admits his entire shtick is dumb and he looks ridiculous. We flash back to Bruce's early days, and here's where we start getting a bit weird. For whatever creative reason, Neil Adams decided that he would have both narrative captions and thought balloons in the same comic. Both normally serve the same purpose, but in this case, the narrative captions are present-day Bruce talking to whoever the hell he's discussing this with, and the thought balloons are his thoughts he actually had at the time. Except, of course, the entire purpose of having the captions in this sort of story is that it allows us to hear his thoughts in retrospect from a first-person perspective. So having the thought balloons there will create some very odd moments. And it starts right here. As you can see, Bruce is on a train, presumably in the UK, given what I think is an accent from the train conductor. Hooah, Mr. Wayne! Going for a spot of air on observation, is it?
That I am. There aren't many passenger cars with an observation deck left these days, Mr. O'Brien.
And here's our thought balloon.
In fact, they're against the law in most places, with few exceptions.
Batman, the Dark Knight, the Caped Crusader, the observer of changing train laws. Just, what is the point of that word balloon? Why did the audience need to know that observation decks are considered illegal in some areas? It's not like it's a plot point, it's just a random thing that Neil apparently felt we needed to know. The conductor continues. Aye, they've nicknamed it the Orient Express for that very reason, Mr. Wayne. On an unrelated note, Mr. Wayne, everyone on this train is a murderer. A strapping young man, buying this train line, they say. Perhaps it won't hurt to let him meet my Jenny.
Part of my methodology is the ability to read people's minds.
It almost feels like the framing device of Bruce telling a story was added later. Otherwise, how the hell does he know what this guy was thinking? Or hell, remember that this is a story that he's telling. He made sure to include that the conductor thought he was strapping, and that he totally wanted to set him up with presumably his daughter. He changes into the costume, and once again we see why having two sets of internal narration may have been a bad idea.
My thoughts went ever so briefly to the costumed man in Metropolis. How different I felt from him.
Now behold how we can see his thoughts. And they don't mention Superman at all.
I'm probably crazy wearing this costume. Frighten criminals? More like acting the buffoon.
I mean, unless the implication here was that he thought Superman looked like a buffoon, which, let's be real here, like 90% of Batman writers make him think that about Clark. One of the things you could glean from interviews with Adams about the book was that he wanted to explore Batman's rejection of guns. As such, since this is an interpretation of Batman's early days, we see him pull out a handgun. It is an interesting thing to ponder about the character. One could argue that as part of the intrinsic nature of Batman, he would outright refuse to use a gun right away, but one could easily see an alternate take like we have here, where he would use it in his early days and then never do so again. Much like how that was sort of a thing in the Golden Age when they were still figuring the character out and he had more connection to pulp characters. It's all stuff that makes for potentially great and memorable stories for Batman. Let's see how Neil messes it up, shall we?
When I drew even one of my 45 automatics, my confidence blossomed and grew. I scrambled upward to the top of the train. Like the creature I emulated, I imagined.
Bats, well known for scrambling up the sides of trains. And once again we see him saying, "Here's what I thought," when the thought balloon does not say that at all.
Could have waited on drawing the gun. Now I have to climb with one hand. Stupid. And I can't put the gun back in the holster. It took me like an hour to get out in the first place.
And I know this is Batman's early days, but you know, we don't necessarily need to see the inexperience at work with his appearance, because it kind of ruins the mystique of the character when we can see that his bat ears are flopping around without proper support. Although it does make me think that for Batman Odyssey, I should wear this Halloween mask from when I was a kid instead of the rubber one.
I am the knight!
He narrates that there was some sort of deal being made on the train between criminals, but he wasn't certain what the deal was about. There are guys standing on the top of a train car farther along, but of course being on top of a train, he can't hear what they're saying. However, his attention is soon diverted to a tanker between him and the criminals.
The country was in the middle of a gasoline shortage. Even so, I couldn't believe what I saw. $6 a gallon? Seriously?
What it actually is a gasoline truck, which for some reason is disguised as a regular rail car. It's a bit weird, yeah, but it's apparently so distracting for him that he completely forgot about the criminals on the other side of the train. One of the criminals spots him, and man, this guy is easily startled. Yog! He's a demon! Oh, we're dead now! Look, it's got claws! Yes, behold this frightening demon with really flappy, bent ears. Like, usually when this sort of thing is in comics, they try to do a better job of putting Batman in shadows so he actually looks more like a frightening shape. But it's pretty well lit out here, and we can see Batman pretty clearly. It just looks like a dude in a crappy costume, but the goons make it sound like he's a Cenobite. Still, they're smart enough to just try gunning him down, though fortunately for Batman, the jostling train makes their aim suck. However, the same thing can be said for him. He tries to launch a batarang at them, but misses, and he gets that bullet wound he was talking about on the first page.
Self-cleaning wound. Hurt the next day. Like a horror show.
Oh, yeah. I've seen Exorcist too. I know that feeling. Batman proceeds to use his own gun, shooting the weapons out of their hands. He's a giant bat! Look at him! God! Have you guys been sniffing the gasoline for the last few hours?
The fear and confusion my costume created was true and honest.
Mostly confusion. And mostly for the reader. He swings around to them and starts knocking them down. However, during the fight, one of the guys manages to grab hold of his mask and pull it off.
Bad timing, and of course, bad design. That costume was mistake after mistake. Even though I just said that costume creates fear and confusion, really it was just a huge mistake.
One of the criminals emerges from the train on the other side and calls out to him.
My hearing was always a cut above perfect.
And again, just 2 pages ago, he was pointing out how hard it was to hear stuff from that distance because of being on top of the train.
Hey, hombre murcielago! Batman. That's good. I like it. I was gonna call myself Gunman, but yeah, I think this works a lot better.
He recognizes the voice as a Commissioner Rodriguez, which he's quite confused about, but quickly turns around and aims a pair of guns at him. You are interfering with national policy, my costume brother. Are you prepared to kill me for the sake of a puzzle you have yet to unravel? Yes, the complicated mystery of hijacking gasoline. It's like a Rubik's Cube inside of an escape room, inside of a Sudoku. He tells Bruce to put down his guns, but Bruce tells the same to him. However, the guy threatens to blow up the gasoline tank if he doesn't do as he says, believing that since Bruce didn't kill any of the goons, he won't shoot to kill. He's right, of course, and Bruce considers what he has to do. And once again, something interesting is ruined by utter confusion, as we cut to Bruce telling the story to Dick Grayson. And no, this is not who he is talking to at the beginning. This is a completely separate thing. So Bruce is telling a story about how he once told a story to Dick about one of his earliest adventures. One nice thing about our flashback in a flashback is we see that Bruce is working on the interior of one of his cowls, letting us see some of the framework of it. I'm still gonna stick with the crappier mask for this, though. However, this also is a good example of another weird thing about this comic: the art. You may have noticed that the artwork is a bit expressive. It's another bizarre creative choice at play here. You know, when I'm editing a video, occasionally I pause a frame that has a weird facial expression. They'll sometimes look kind of hilarious. Almost every panel of this comic looks like it's made up of goofy facial expressions from some in-between frame of a video. Back in the train flashback, Bruce tries to figure out a way to shoot his gun out without risking him firing into the gasoline. However, the guy's upper body is shot out.
I was stunned. A part of me thought I had actually shot him. Ironically, I had just watched Star Trek VI earlier that day.
However, it turns out to be someone I don't think we've ever seen before. The Maniaco, a Spanish undercover agent.
He wasn't operating in the US legally.
Wait, they're in the US? Why was everyone speaking with a British accent? The Maniaco asks why he's carrying around guns when he's supposed to be a detective.
For defense. Guns are not a defense.
Oh yeah? Give me a crap ton of guns and some duct tape, and I'll have a Captain America shield made out of them in half an hour. Bruce tells Dick that it was a mistake to pack the guns. I gotta say, boss, like you first said, they give you confidence, just the feel of them. I truly know what it is to be the Doom Marine. Also, despite the fact that the comic explicitly says this is supposed to be Dick Grayson, he's wearing Tim Drake's Robin outfit.
Great continuity!
I mean, it's not like there was a communications breakdown between artist and writer. They're the same guy! Batman says that he's just entranced by the romance of firearms, but enough about that. Man-Bat is suddenly here and picks up Tim Dick. Batman completely ignores this, which made me think at first that Man-Bat had always just been hanging around during Bruce's narration. But no! Batman is just completely ignoring Man-Bat picking up his sidekick.
Let's say you're in a darkened room with 20 men.
My God! Frederick Wortham was right! Actually, Batman is just giving an example of how they're better without guns. In this case, in a room with 20 people who all have guns, they're more inclined to be afraid of people with guns than without, and what's more, they're focused on two things: surviving and shooting others. While Dick would only be concerned about surviving, giving him more focus. Neat, but that first point assumes that the 20 guys aren't all working together, which I would assume they would be. The second assumes that they are actually concerned about surviving. But hey, what do I know? I'm not the guy letting his partner get thrown around by a giant half-man, half-bat monster. Batman narrates that he was more preoccupied with his own thoughts and issues at the time.
I gave myself the excuse that things were becoming overwhelming and confusing.
Well, you're not wrong, since I'm halfway through the first issue and I have no idea what the hell is going on.
And now I was playing catch-up. I had no idea what the mystery was that I hadn't solved. If you asked me then what the mystery was, I couldn't have told you.
Neither could I, since I didn't know there was a mystery at all. He says that mystery started on the train. Somehow. In any event, Man-Bat talks to Batman, saying that he's
verified his suspicions.
That and more. You'll need to read this. The answer is B. Ah yes. The mystery of the SAT scores. Batman asks how long he's been in his Man-Bat form, and he replies 2 hours, which Batman finds unacceptable. He could have come as Dr. Kirk Langstrom and not as the creature. He says he has things to tell Batman that he can only say as Man-Bat, but then he gets interrupted by a call from Commissioner Gordon, who informs our heroes that the Wayne Industries pier has been attacked, just as Batman predicted off-panel. Batman says that it's a cover-up for the Riddler staging an attack on the Gotham Mint, and that he'll be right there, telling Man-Bat to take the anti-serum and then call him. In the meantime, our heroes head to the Batmobile. It's a bat, it's a sports car, it's a plane, it's a supercar! Thank you, Robin, for that paid advertisement.
It's more than luck, boy blunder.
Ah, I see why they thought that Frank Miller would be a good fit for this project.
It's James Bond cubed.
So in this continuity, it wasn't a Zorro movie Bruce saw, it was Man with the Golden Gun? I mean, are we sure this isn't just an extension of All-Star Batman and Robin? Insulting Robin, bizarre narration and inner thoughts, being way too into trying to convince people that his stuff is cool. Did you just call me Boy Wonder?
Blunder.
Thank God! Let us pray now for this crappy book to the deity of all comics, God. What gets me is that Robin was at first confused why he would be called Boy Wonder, except Boy Blunder only works as an insult in this context if Boy Wonder was already a thing in this universe. Also, why the hell is Batman just randomly insulting him?
Systems.
Online.
Seals.
Disengaged. Seals?
Arf arf. Guns are the wrong call, Robin. I'm gonna throw baby seals at our enemies.
What is this scene? Anyway, Batman tells Commissioner Gordon, gee, I hope he didn't have the communication channel open when he was making seal noises, that he's not going to the Mint where the Riddler is, but rather the pier. Robin is naturally confused why they're not going after the Riddler and instead trying to save a shipment of dinosaur bones. He can print his own money.
And spend it if he's not caught first. How much can he print? Where can he print it? Can he print it faster than the Mint?
I get the feeling Batman is trying to freestyle a Dr. Seuss-esque book about fighting crime.
Does he use all that he can print? Does the money from the Mint that he prints taste like mint?
I just don't understand half of this dialogue. Despite the fact that this is crammed to the brim with dialogue saying nothing, it feels like chunks of it are missing.
Best of all, who cares?
Batman Odyssey! Who cares? After some more back and forth, he reveals that he's pretty sure he knows the Riddler's game and that going to confront him is the wrong call, but that they'll eventually face him. I hate this Sherlock Holmes crap. Can I have a gun? It really made me feel like it could solve all our problems. Back in the cave, Man-Bat drops the serum, but because of the weird dialogue and him constantly talking to himself, I'm not sure if he did it deliberately. In any event, he says he came to warn Batman about something, but he'll just do it later. And that's when a larger Man-Bat creature comes out of nowhere and grabs him, threatening to pull his spine out if he tells Batman what he came to say. Okay, there's precedent in the comics for Man-Bat to know where the Batcave is, so I let that slide, but who the hell is this other bat creature that knows this stuff? Apparently, this concerns the existence of some other cave.
You know that Ra's al Ghul never figured out that Bruce Wayne was Batman. You know he found it. Others, balk, found it by accident.
Did that creature just balk like a chicken? Also, way to undercut the brilliance of one of the enemies you created by saying he needed help to uncover that Bruce Wayne was Batman. Also, check out how this guy is holding Man-Bat. Apparently Man-Bat's just wearing a shirt that looks like the front of his chest, since it seems like any second now his skin is gonna get pulled off. Back to Batman and Robin, and getting a better look at the Batmobile, it's just a fancy-looking sports car. Hell, I think it looks more like Nightcat's Cadillac than it does a Batmobile. They examine a note that the Riddler left earlier. Too full to eat one bit more. Too loaded, you can't order. Time to hear a friendly hint. How about an after dinner mint? It's the Mint.
Of course, Robin, the mint chocolate chip ice cream. Incidentally, did you know that in Minnesota, it's sometimes called peppermint bonbon? I'm full of interesting information today.
Batman reaffirms that he's going to the piers, which, yeah, I've got to agree. The Riddler is not usually that obvious with the riddle. They drive off the end of a road, much to Robin's shock, and then the tires in the Batmobile fold over into jets, Back to the Future style. The Harrier technology got its final testing during the week, during midterm exams.
This'll let us avoid a whole lot of traffic, if they don't shoot us down.
This is the weirdest episode of Rick and Morty by far. They fly out to the pier, which is already surrounded by a crap ton of police helicopters. Fortunately, as indicated by Batman's remark about James Bond, the car is also capable of transforming into a boat, which they use to approach the police cordon from the water. Commissioner Gordon is talking with some other officers about it. The thieves are very well armed, with 2 fleets of trucks that have been easily able to get through police roadblocks and are all spreading out as they continue to swipe dinosaur bones. To make it worse, the police are severely undermanned because a lot of them are dealing with the situation over at the Gotham Mint. Batman appears and says the real goal of the thieves is to reach the end of the pier. He doesn't explain how he knows that, but does say that he and Robin will be able to intercept them there and contain them long enough for his men to move in and take care of the stragglers. Also, the two have hang gliders built into their capes, and that is awesome. Hell, Robin even has a jetpack attached to it. That's the funny thing about this book that still makes it 1,000 times better than All-Star Batman and Robin. Legitimately awesome things like that versus Batman ordering a traumatized child to eat rats. He sends Dick off to establish a barrier in the middle of the pier to limit their escape. Not sure what he'll make the barrier out of, but whatever. Commissioner Gordon delivers instructions to his men via megaphone. All right, move your assault squads into attack position on the land side. Snipers to take out tires on the left sides. Assault to begin in exactly 7 minutes. I just hope that none of the criminals are listening to this. That'd be kind of a bummer if they knew our plans that I was giving very quietly to my men. And so our comic ends inside a warehouse where the leader of the thieves, who's in a business suit for some reason, has taken some hostages. A professor who was overseeing the artifacts and his daughter. The leader demands to be shown some hydrogen tanks, which are pointed out to him, and the leader opens fire on those tanks. Blow! Blow to hell! Well, that's just inaccurate, because this comic doesn't blow. This comic sucks. It's very easy to compare this to Aspar, as I continually do. Bizarre dialogue choices, Batman being verbally abusive to Dick Grayson for whatever reason, Batman desperately trying to look cool, and it's a former well-loved Batman creator returning to the character for a miniseries that, well, is terrible. It is better than Aspar, since there are concepts and ideas in this that are still pretty awesome, and it's certainly better paced in that I feel like things are happening in this book. I don't know what's happening, but things are happening. Plus, less of Miller's random emphasis of words and repetition. The artwork is fine for the most part, aside from the aforementioned weird facial expressions everyone is making. However, it feels like huge chunks of the story are either missing, or we're supposed to be really reading between the lines in the dialogue to help establish what is actually going on in the book. Batman in particular speaks in such an odd way, cracking bizarre jokes or making remarks at inappropriate times that feel wildly too jovial for him in any incarnation of the character. Hell, don't just consider Batman, other characters have weird things going on with them in their dialogue, like the final lines of the issue being, "Blow! Blow to hell!" Add in the bizarre narrative captions and thought balloons, and the whole thing is just weird. However, what does help is the fact that it is so bizarre, so nonsensical, and full of so many non sequiturs that it actually makes it so bad it's good. This Batman won't call someone retarded or scream that he's the goddamn Batman, but he will make sure to let you know his car is like totally cool, like James Bond, man. Next time, another Patreon-sponsored review. This time, one of a series that people have been asking me to look at since the show started. Come back next week for Asterix the Legionary.
I'm sitting on my couch reviewing comics, the worst words that you will ever see. It's sad that comic books are for geeks, but they're not. They're for everybody. Linkara. If you doubt that I am a man, I am a man.
I get it. We'll do this, then get the Riddler. After dinner, what? Mint. The world's greatest detective, everybody, doesn't know what an after dinner mint is.